Hello, hello, Gutsy Women. Welcome to this lovely Wednesday. And today I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing DeJoly Labriere. I think I've got that right. And and it's really important, I think, to get people's names correct. So um, I'm glad we clarified that before we started.
Mhm.
DeJoly, you are over in the US, I believe.
Yes, I'm
And
in Northeast Alabama.
right, okay. And you have a great story to tell, and the work that you do is fascinating. So I can't wait to actually have this chat with you today inside the group. And I think it's going to be really interesting, fascinating, and helpful to the women in here as well. So thank you for coming on and spending some time with me in your morning today.
Yes, it's 8 o'clock in the morning here. Yes.
Wow, early, yeah, very early. Okay, DeJoly, could you tell people a little bit more about who you are and what it is that brought you to doing what you do? Because there's always a pivotal moment or several that brings people into the passion of what they love to do. So I'd love you to share that with people.
hmm Well, starting at now and going back and coming forward, now I am a coach and I coach women who have any kind of um, desire to go further and they're blocked. They don't know why. And I take them through shadow work and looking at the things that they might be hiding from themselves that could be helpful, and that might have bothered them in the past as far as trauma goes, where they can um, overcome that and move through it and then have the life that they want. So that's basically what I do, not only in my one-on-one, but in my group coaching. And I also have a retreat that's coming up in October. So I'm really excited about that I do that every year. So, but originally I am a survivor of severe abuse. And my journey along the way was speaking for 20 years to organizations and conferences, universities, that kind of thing about healing from ritual abuse. And in the process, I also wrote 4 books. So that coming forward, people started asking me if I could help them get through things. And at first, it was related to ritual abuse. And then it became generalized in a way where they didn't understand that they had been traumatized as a child and that they picked up all the cues of how to stay safe and how to be loved and all that. So they formed their personalities, their characteristics based on what they were hearing and feeling in their environment. And as they go forward, they want to be more authentic, they want to be more themselves, they want to have more freedom, and they don't understand why they aren't doing that. So, in my group and in my one-on-one, we work with facing the shadow and pulling things out that are more helpful now than they would have been in the past. Um, that the caretakers thought they should stay safe by not coming out and being rambunctious or playful or anything like that. So a lot of the women that I work with have a hard time playing. They have a hard time laughing and being spontaneous, um, like we are today. And so to me, it's been very fulfilling. And one of my things is I would like to help more women. So I am playing with the idea and the reality of creating a foundation for women and children who are coming out of ritual abuse and need a place to be safe. They might need medical care. They might need therapy, trauma-based therapy. They might need an attorney. So I'm going to be creating something where they would have a focal point to go to that foundation and get help.
Okay, so trauma and abuse is huge. It happens more than we've ever known, and it's more and more talked about these days than it was when I was a child and when I was going through my experience of that.
hmm
I have not had ritual abuse, I don't believe. However, that word ritual might be an unusual word for people in the group listening today. Can you explain what ritual abuse is and how is it different from the, or not the ordinary, but the normal
Trauma.
trauma that people may have experienced in their home with family, friends of parents, friends, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, oftentimes people relate it to satanic ritual abuse, which is what I experienced, where there's a cult and there are people that are being abused and maybe killed, maybe maimed, different things are happening. They're in a ritual. But also ritual abuse can occur within a family. And what it is when there's a expected outcome, when somebody says, I'm going to do this, or they do that, and you know that the outcome of that is going to be abuse. So it doesn't have to be, it can be a clue. Like, some people have a parent or a guardian who does this sometimes, and they'll point or they'll say something, and you know that you got to be prepared for the abuse that's coming. That's ritualized because it becomes a pattern of ritual. But the more common, because most people don't want to admit that they've got that kind of abuse in their background, because it seems to be like a no-no, a taboo kind of thing to talk about. But in reality, it's very important to talk about it, because we just by picking up the nuances of our environment with our caretakers and that kind of thing, you in your mind you think, but they love me. Why would they do that to me? That kind of thing. And the reality is that some people aren't capable of giving us the love that we want and need, and so they have this underlying level of abuse that they put us through. So it can happen in any family.
And when you said satanic ritual abuse,
Hmm.
is that, does that happen within like a faith-based container, if you like,
It
through?
can.
Yeah.
It can. Now, ritualized abuse can happen within a cult, whether it's satanic or not, because there are some groups. In fact, we have one group here in the mountain that's really kind of concerning me, um, where they're a closed society. Mostly, they're usually ritual abuse, the term ritual abuse, occurs within a closed society where people aren't allowed to leave. They're indoctrinated to a certain way of thinking over and over again. They're repetitive kind of things, ritualized. And the end result is usually sexual abuse or slavery. So there's a couple of things that happen there. So a child growing up in that environment doesn't know any better. So they don't understand that they've been ritually abused. But yes, it's usually within a closed society where it could even be only 10 people. It could even be your family. Mine was my family, but within that container, you don't know any different.
So when, this is fascinating, by the way. So when
You did say it was going to be
I
fascinating.
did, I did, I did, I did. Thank you. Thank you for this. And thank you for sharing this, because this is, something that I would imagine isn't spoken about very often. It's kept hidden.
Mm-mm.
And we don't know how many women out there have gone through this.
That's
And there
right.
may well be people in the group that have,
That's right.
and who are in the group and just sitting back and observing. So when you say that children who go through that don't know that it's abuse,
Mm-hmm.
when does the trauma element sit in, or seem to appear? Because for me as a psychotherapist, the trauma element is around our understanding that something isn't quite right, and it's how we internalize it. So when
Mm-hmm.
does that trauma thing kick in for people to actually feel the negative effects of that?
Okay, well, when I left home and went to college, I saw other people laughing and joking and walking around without any cares. And for me, it was like I was still in that I'm afraid of everything kind of, you know. And so it took me that realization that outside of my home, there was freedom. There was a way to express myself and be, more free. I can't say I was totally free because it takes a while to get over that.
Mm,
But within the small child's family or group, because they're off, sometimes they're actually given to the group and they're done. Parents are done.
mm,
Um, and then the child may see a discrepancy between how they're treated and how someone else is treated. And so they get that it's something's not right here, that feeling that you're talking about. But they also don't actually make the move to get out until somebody helps them, because usually a 5 or 6 year old has no way of finding help, knowing that they need help. They just don't feel good. They're always feeling sad, in pain. And then the other part of it is they actually have in a society, I should say a society where the I'm individual bubble within our society is set aside, privatized, and they're all believers, so to speak.
mm,
And so the child doesn't know that they're being abused, and but they have sometimes when they play games, like they'll play kickball, or they'll play basketball or whatever, they make it seem so normal that the child is confused, and there's that level of confusion that bonds the abusers with the abused. That's the level, like, well, sometimes they're nice to me. It's that old thing about intermittent reinforcement. You know, you love me, but you're hitting. Okay, so maybe love and hitting match. Maybe they bond, right? So there's all kinds of ways that children can move toward that, but there's not a particular age. I was 40 when I went into therapy and said something's not right. So I'm not getting connected to my husband. Why am I not connecting? And what is so triggering about XYZ? And it took that to move me into deep dive recovery work.
mm. So there's an element of Stockholm syndrome going on as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and for anybody listening who doesn't know what Stockholm syndrome is, it's where the abused has good feelings and loving feelings towards the abuser. And even when it's found that they've been abused, they still protect
Hmm.
that person, or they still want to
Hmm.
be there. So, yeah, that's in a very simple nutshell. But do you also work with the perpetrators of this
No,
abuse as well? Because
no.
she, okay, if children are being brought up in that environment, the abusers may have been brought up in that environment, and
Hmm.
they don't believe it's wrong either. They've just followed through and carried on the pattern.
That's
And
right.
so it's a bit like, a child who bullies another child at school. They're being abused and maybe hit and bullied by maybe a parent or a brother or another sibling or somebody else, and they
Hmm.
just act out that behavior on other people. So I'm just
Hmm.
wondering, in that line of thinking,
Hmm.
where would somebody who realizes eventually that they've done wrong would they get that help from?
There is trauma-related therapy, and I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to pretend that I would treat everyone, that I would take everyone as a client. I have to say I'm a little picky, because the person needs to be at a point where they're not suicidal, but they want to go further rather than stay in that negativity of the environment. Um, the foundation is going to go toward those who survive. There are therapists, and there are law enforcement officers who can take care of getting the person who's the bully or the person who's in the cult to see the error of their ways, so to speak. But I'm not that person. I know that
Mm,
because I have so clearly been the recipient of the abuse.
Yes. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, we have to be we have to, I mean, when I did my training, I had to go through my own therapy. So I didn't bring anything from my past into that room when I'm supporting and helping someone. And it's really
Absolutely.
important that we don't use our training to be therapists and psychotherapists as our own healing. We
Yeah,
have to actually
that's
go
right.
through that process. So
That's
I
right.
totally get that, DeJoly, definitely. And so how do people find you then if this subject is quite hidden and there's a lot of shame and embarrassment around it maybe, and a lot of can't bring this out of the closet, it's a Pandora's box of all sorts happening.
That's right.
Where would people find you?
They can look at my website, DeJoly.com. I'm on Facebook. I have 2 books because what I do in my work is journaling is very powerful, and I am a writer. I have 4 books out. So I use writing as a method for them to discover and recover. So they can find me on Amazon with my books, or they can Google my name and it'll come up. My Facebook is also out there. So if they are interested in actually getting into the private Facebook group where we talk about being an authentic writer and telling our stories in a more authentic way, because oftentimes we sugarcoat our story, and sometimes, and definitely, we don't tell our story if it isn't sugarcoated. So, I help them get through that, where they can actually tell it and release it, and then move forward. So, in my Facebook writing group.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I'd love you to put those things into the group once we finish this interview.
Okay.
A final question is around when somebody comes to you, do you notice that they also have other health issues, not simply the psychological and emotional stuff going on, but they also have other health issues going on as
Mhm.
well?
Absolutely. I'm a total believer in that we keep all of our trauma in our body. Our body is a receptor from birth. And so we keep that. And if we don't allow it to come out, if we don't allow the healing, then it festers and it becomes a disease. And I have experienced people with asthma, overweight, gastric bypass. I've experienced people with addictions, and I've experienced people with anorexia, bulimia, those kinds of things that seemingly around the gut. But there are also survivors who have breast cancer, ovarian cancer. It's related to the sexual organs if they're sexual abuse survivors. So, yeah, I have had that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to bring that in because this group is all around the mind and body connection to healing physical symptoms, chronic pain conditions, then I just wanted to drop that in for people who maybe have some of this in their background,
I'm
to
glad you asked that.
maybe think about, is this what is causing my chronic illness? It's
Hmm.
not just food, it's not just a bit of stress or a bit of anxiety, it could be something
Hmm.
a lot deeper, and that's something that you could maybe help them with. So I just wanted to just drop that in there. Thank you for doing that.
I appreciate you asking that because not very many people really do understand the connection.
Mm.
But they often, they say they want to heal this, but they don't realize that healing that is going to heal this.
Mm.
So, and
That's
this and vice versa. So they really need to be worked together.
Yes, and that's what I found in my work as well, DeJoly, is that somebody comes to me, they sit in front of me because they have IBS or they have fibromyalgia or they have something, and yet that isn't what is the thing that needs the healing.
That's
That's
right.
just the symptom of an underlying something going on.
That's
And
right.
so and that happens probably 99.9% of the time. So
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
an important point that we can get across. So I absolutely have loved this conversation, and
Me too. Thank
I would
you.
love to have you back in, because I'm going to be doing some events and putting events in here for people who have got all manner of different things and different stresses and anxieties and all kinds of things. So I would
Mhm.
love you to be part of that if you feel called.
That would be
And
beautiful. I'd love to
yeah,
do that.
thank
Mhm.
you. And so I would just want to say to people watching, if anything that DeJoly has mentioned that lands with you, that you feel is part of your history, that's part of your that may be part of your condition, that is contributing to it, then please contact DeJoly. She's in the group. She will be more than happy to answer any questions. And if you feel called and you don't want to be public about your connection, you can message DeJoly directly and find her on her links and everything like that. So I would ask you to do that.
I would like to ask a favor of the people who do contact me. Let me know where they heard about it, because I have gotten spammed and gotten trolled by some people who didn't identify themselves.
Could you say that again? Because my internet froze.
Yeah, it did freeze. I was like, is she there? I would like for them to identify where they heard about it, because if they don't, I may delete them, because I don't want to be trolled and spam and all the rest of that. So they need to identify that they were with you or with Gutsy Women or
Yes,
something. Mm.
lovely. Excellent. Okay, that's great. Thank you for putting that in there as well. Okay, DeJoly, I'm going to end the live here. Thank you very much for being a gutsy woman today. Thank you
Thank
so much.
thank you
And
very much.
yeah, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. I'll just end the live stream if you just like to stay there for 2 minutes.